Mistakes growing families make when buying their next home. Hey friends, Todd here with the Mortgage Toddcast. The reality is this: a lot of people just need more space. Their family's growing. There's a lot happening. And they end up buying a home because they think it's the next thing to do, but they make these mistakes. And these mistakes can add up to thousands of dollars. So be educated, plan ahead, and for heaven's sakes, don't make these mistakes. First of all, down payment. Down payment is king. If you're selling a home and purchasing a new home, you might have some liquidity that you can roll over from one to the other. The reality is this: when you're buying that next home for your bigger family, then if you can put 20% down, by all means do that. But don't just put the minimum down necessarily. There's a sweet spot between the 3.5% down and the 20% down, because a lot of us don't have the 20%, even with selling another property. Somewhere in that 10 to 15%, you're going to lower your mortgage insurance, and it's going to fall off in 2 to 3 years depending on appreciation. That might be the sweet spot for you. So don't make the assumption that one, you have to put the 20% down even if you have it, because you might can make more in the market with it than you can in using it in the project. Two, don't put 3.5% down, because, or even 5% if you can afford to do 10, because you're going to have mortgage insurance. And your home's not going to appreciate fast enough for that mortgage insurance to fall off in the next couple of years. But if you put 10 to 15% down, that's a reality. You just have to be wise with your money. You have to be wise with the way you structure a loan. That's why we recommend you talk to a mortgage professional. Because just doing it on your own, you might step into one of these potholes that honestly ends up costing you money over time. And it can all be avoided if you just sit down and plan accordingly. So number one mistake people make is not structuring their home the right way, their new mortgage. It's not using the monies they have available to them in the right way. Doesn't mean that one's right or wrong. What's right for you might be wrong for someone else, and vice versa. So it's sitting down with someone and understanding the overall goal and the big picture will help us design a mortgage that's best for you. That's the number one mistake I see people making. Number two mistake, a little more logical. You know you need more bedrooms because you're having a baby, or maybe twins. Heaven forbid it's triplets. But your family's growing, and congratulations for that. But the reality is sometimes it's just about the space and not about the environment. The second mistake I see people make is they find the perfect home. It's the right size, it fits their budget, all that's great, but it's in a terrible school district. So you've achieved the space requirement, but you haven't set your family and your kids up for success. Now, if you're going to homeschool or private school, great, doesn't necessarily matter. But that's not the majority of the people these days. A lot of people are still sending their kids to public school. There's great public schools out there, and there's some that aren't so great. So make sure when you're looking and you're considering which home to place your offer on, even though maybe you have two homes that are identical space-wise, they both meet your space requirements. But the reality is one's in a really, really good school district and one's in a maybe not so good school district. But the one in the better school district costs a little bit more. I'm going to challenge you that might be worth your investment. It might be worth spending an extra $10 or $15 or $20,000 on a home to set your kids up for success with their education. So don't just think space. Think environment. Think where it's at. Is it located close to a park? Is it in a great school district? Is it close to your shopping needs and things like that? Because just getting a great deal on a home that has the right amount of square footage, but outside of that has no other value for your home, for your family, I'm not sure that's a win. So the second mistake I see people make is not really thinking big picture. Just thinking about the right here and now. I need another bedroom, or I need 2 more bedrooms and an office. You can go find space everywhere. Matter of fact, it's probably gonna be cheaper in areas that are a little more stressed. Find a place that's good for not only your space requirements, but for also your family requirements. The third mistake I think that's easy to make is that you work all your numbers based off of your budget that you have right now. How much income do I have? What are my expenses? Which is really kind of sound thinking, but what you really need to be doing is working it off of a budget that includes the costs associated with your growing family, with that next child, with their sports, with their dancing, with their needs for daycare. Build your budget off of what you think it's going to be once your family grows, not what it is right now. I mean, there's a lot to consider. Kids are expensive. I'll let you in a little secret. Grandkids are even more expensive, but at least you can send them home. The reality is, if your family's growing, don't set your budget off of today's numbers. I don't want you to feel great about where you are financially with the purchase of your house today to only realize later you're cash poor because you didn't consider any of your costs associated with your kids. You don't want to be house poor. You want to make sure your budget's set appropriately, that your mortgage payment doesn't eat up every dime that you've got. Well, or that your mortgage payment and all these additional costs for your kids eat up everything you've got. You want to be able to vacation, right? Part of growing a family is memories. You have to have the finances to make those memories. Also, kind of a good rule of thumb and maybe a good safety net would be, if a program will allow you to have a 50% debt to income ratio, meaning 50% of your gross income goes back out, if you're growing a family, I would recommend you personally setting the bar at about 40 or 43%. That gives you a little cushion, if you will. So if the expenses associated with growing your family are a little higher than you thought, you still have a little safety net. You have a little cushion there. So make sure you think long term. Think environment, think how best to use your money, and think about the school districts. Think about where you're going to be with your kids and what they're going to do. Probably the fourth mistake that I see people make is they buy a house and a home for right now. They're having a child, that's great. And their family's growing and they're going to buy for it to fit those needs. But you got to think 5 years down the road. Is this going to be your only child? What are your plans? I know sometimes things work out the way you want them to, sometimes they don't. But if you think you're going to have a larger family, it might behoove you right now not to just buy your space and need requirements for this first child or second child, but maybe if there's going to be additional ones, go ahead and plan accordingly. Is there enough space later on if we do have another child? Is there enough yard space for multiple kids? Is there enough amenities? Is the kitchen big enough to hold a family of 5 versus a family of 3 or 4? Those are things you need to think about, because changing homes again later, which you could do, people do it all the time, I will tell you is going to be more costly than addressing those issues and those concerns and those needs now, because houses aren't getting cheaper. Mortgage rates come and go, but I will tell you, home costs don't seem to ever come back. They always move forward. They move higher. So mistake number 4, make sure you're buying your home based off of where you think you're going to be 5 years down the road. And finally, when you're getting a home inspection, make sure you review that inspection, not just for today, but for 5 years down the road. If your family's planning on having children, there's things like lead-based paint that happened before 1978. You want to make sure you address those issues and concerns right now. You don't want a little one crawling around picking up paint chips that might have lead in them. So Use the inspection report that you get to not only evaluate how the property sits right now and the little things that might be done or the major things that might need to be done, but think about it from that lens and also think about it from the lens 5 years down the road. Because I'll tell you this, the things that are important to you today may change, most likely will change 5 years down the road. So if it's adding children to the mix, if it's adding an office later on, there might be a lot of different things. So just use that perspective of today and in the future, because those lenses might be a little different. Well, that wraps it up for us today. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's The Mortgage Toddcast. Join us next week. Subscribe. Tell your friends. This is a great place to grab information about the home buying process and all the things that come along with that. Until next time, take care. Hope you find that dream home of yours and let us know how we can help. See you later.